Hey everyone, this is Jamie, and today I'll specifically be focusing on one of the biggest issues at hand, which is happening in the UK right now. Uh, the court ruling of not allowing puberty blockers for trans people which are below 16 years of age, and in general, the whole dispute about hormone blockers and the Keira Bell case. So, I do understand that there are people who start questioning and then they realize that they might not be trans, or um, they might realize that their gender expression is a bit different. And I do understand. And of course, even through my own gender experience, I first identified as gender fluid for a year. And then when I saw that I wasn't actually changing from male, I spoke to my partner, and we both kind of said, yeah, I'm probably male. And then I proceeded to try and see what felt right for me, because I had a massive social stigma. Um, because obviously coming from Eastern Europe and being raised by a rather strict mother, I had really bad views on men at the time. And I do have things I regret in the past. So it was very hard for me to accept certain things. And then I understood that my upbringing harmed me much more than I ever expected. And I've also been a victim of abuse of many sorts. So I really want to stress that when you go on hormones, it's not, and specifically in the UK case, we're talking about NHS. The waiting list is what, average 2 years now? Something like that. So it takes about 2 years to get your first appointment. And in most places, it is roughly the same. The only place from the top of my head where you can get it quicker is informed consent clinics in the US. And even then, those are controversial. Like, should they be allowed? And they're not everywhere. They're not like McDonald's people, okay? So what happens is this. It's really difficult for me not to be angry at Keira Bell, because I do have a massive, massive beef against TERFs. Um, Once you get into that rhetoric that they preach, and it's very poisonous, it's very venomous, poisonous, I don't care. The point is, it's very harmful and it's very one-sided, and you need to do your research, and when you do your research, you actually decide that it's actually fucked up. And no human being deserves to not have rights, regardless of their gender expression, their decision to go on hormones or not, their lifestyle, um, their their partner, their partners. Like, um, and this is specifically hard for me because I was recently kicked out of my own family. So yeah, you're gonna probably think that I'm in my early 20s, but I'm actually 26. I'll be 27 soon. I started hormones. It's gonna be 3 years ago in May. So I went until I was 24 without hormones. When I first heard about hormone blockers, I was already trans. I remember that discussion. I had no idea what it was. I I was talking to a person on Tumblr, and they said that they don't agree with hormone blockers. Then I went to research what even are hormone blockers. For you to understand, I had no idea what trans people are until I moved out to the UK from Eastern Europe. I had been barely any proper ideas of LGBT people. So, as much as I have a a kind of very difficult history with the UK, because obviously, as you can see, I'm not in the UK. I still have a lot of things to be grateful, and one of them is allowing me to slowly start understanding what trans people are. So I wanted to say that when we were discussing about hormone blockers, I had no idea those existed. And I broke down crying because I remember my puberty. I was I was the first person to get a chest in my class, and I got puberty earlier than everyone else. So I was trying my best to hide it. So while other people would parade their period or whatever, I felt ashamed. I remember I would ask my friend to turn around, and I would quickly put the pads, and I'd be shaking and everything because I just didn't want this to happen. And I didn't want people to know that I was going through this either. I remember when I got my chest and started growing, I would literally look down at myself and say, why is my chest not flat? I want my flat chest back. And to this day, I still want a flat chest. There's a reason I am waiting so many fucking years to get a flat chest. And taking a sample of one person who decided it's not for her after top surgery, and talking to fucking TERFs, decided that, not her thing, okay? But to do a court case to say that, how to put this softly, that the clinic was leading her on, just plays into the regular TERF rhetoric. I have volunteered in LGBT circles even before I knew I was trans. I remember how painful the experiences were about 80 years ago, and to this day. Right now, I am currently transitioning because I still need to do my operations, and don't forget that HRT you start and it goes on. So, how did I get hormones? I went to private, and I went to a doctor who is currently no longer working, and he was pretty much the go-to person for many, many years for trans people in the place I'm in. Um, and before that, I would frequent trans groups while I was waiting in other countries, and it never actually amounted to anything until I came here. And I knew that I could do it through a regular clinic, like the public healthcare. And I do want to thank the public healthcare here because it's really good. But obviously, it has its setbacks, and now it's COVID, so the situation is not as simple. And my surgery, for instance, got pushed back a year. So, and everyone else's really. Um, so what happened to me was I would go to a 3-hour bus ride there and back because I lived in another city, and I would spend the time answering a bunch of questions which any TERF can answer really, and ask you. Like, you don't understand what it is to literally have a cis doctor looking at you and saying, have you ever peed standing? And you know that, God forbid, you show any hesitations or anything. So please remember that there's also non-binary people. There are people who have less dysphoria. And all of these questions, there's a bunch of tests which you have to go through. There's a bunch of written data which is kept. There's the life story where you explicitly write why are you different from other people who are assigned your gender at birth. I remember I had to draw a fucking timeline and I had to write every single one of my experiences where I felt uncomfortable. I'm sorry, this video is going to be longer as you may have noticed. And I had a bunch of questions. I won't even remember. All of them are very, very tricky. They are literally meant to weed you out. If there is any hesitation, they will weed you out. 100%. Also, I know a case of a person who did get refused HRT. I have a very complicated history with that person, and we no longer talk, but I did hear that, and then I checked their Facebook page, and indeed they got refused HRT, and then what happened was, I think they continued living as male, which was their assigned gender. And in general, I remember how they would treat me, and they would belittle me for being trans and for not passing well enough. And I had a very turbulent relationship with them, but that's for another time. Or maybe I did talk about them enough. But anyway. So yeah, they did get refused. And in general, because it's so tricky to get HRT, to be honest, or to get the approval to go forwards, you need to do a lot of things. You need to assess a lot. It's not like you hit your head and you feel, oh, I'm trans, I'm gonna go. We know the stigma. Like, people really don't understand what it's like when you just can't fit in. When you don't understand what's wrong with you, who you're attracted to. Why are you not attractive? Why are you getting bullied? It took a really long while for me to accept myself. And I still think that accepting yourself is probably the longest journey we have because we're constantly under ridicule. And right now, it's going to be even worse because um, Keira Bell pretty much just said, you know what? I'm going to fuck it up for everyone. And it's really hard to sit here very quietly because this is not okay. I understand that I am about to be 27, so I'm not in the risk. I have been approved for HRT and I have been approved for surgeries. Also, I wanted to say that to get approved for surgeries, it's also a long process. And in every country it's different. I just feel very shocked because this really hits a lot of unpleasant feelings for me because I wish I had hormone blockers when I was young. But I come from a country where that would not be possible and people do not receive HRT where I come from. And I remember I was asked on an FTM thread by someone who was from the same country, but keep in mind that I come from a Russian speaking family, so they just decided not to reply to me. I reached out to help them out, to tell them, like, you can't get HRT where we're born, so you kind of have to move out, and I can help you out, but obviously I don't speak the local language because I come from a Russian family, and I've moved abroad for many times, and I do not speak it as fluently as I wish, or I don't wish it, but whatever. And then they responded to me. And I also had a bunch of situations where people were very hostile to me just because I was Russian and obviously I have a Russian face, I have a Russian accent, uh, and it's even gotten to the point that I actually do speak English when I am in my home country because I just don't feel comfortable in any way. And there's also a reason why I no longer live there, and um, I know I mentioned this before, or if you're new, this Christmas season and holiday season will be very difficult for me because it wasn't so long ago that half my family rejected me, and it's still a very painful topic. And specifically that I think this is something no one highlighted, which we really should. So, Keira Bell is under protection of TERFs, right? Right. So basically, we're going back to the age-old um, problem of TERFs speaking on trans rights. So, when are we gonna stop listening to them? Hmm? Oh, jeez. It's it feels very restraining. It feels very sad. It feels very devastating that I've been yelling this for ages. I have a bunch of videos on this. There are other woman issues. There's abortion in Poland, abortion in fucking Latin America, which are mostly problems which cis women speak about. So why don't you do yourself a favor and fucking fight for that, for instance, if you are so passionate about women's rights and you feel like, you know, I'm just gonna quote a few things I've heard over the years. If you feel like trans men are traitors to women, and if you feel like poor Keira Bell might be infertile now. One of the reasons I was cut off was due to my infertility and my decision to remain infertile, and I did not even get the chance to open my mouth and say that I was actually offered to freeze my eggs and start transition later, as I have a stable partner and I could have had children. The doctor, which was different from the psychologist, the one who was pretty much monitoring everything, he was really good. He was the one who stopped working. Uh, I guess he's just, I don't know, chilling somewhere sunny, most likely. But regardless, I remember he told me that I need to think, I need to ask my partner, I need to ask myself, do I want to have biological children? And I did go back and I asked myself if I want to freeze eggs. I researched the process. I was thinking about it. Then I realized that in order to freeze eggs, I'd have to be injected with more female hormones, and it just wasn't a path that I want to pursue. And then I'd also have to find a surrogate after that, which would be very troublesome as well. And this is something which people really don't understand. And it's something I don't even talk about that much myself, but people really kind of feel as if they have the right to decide who will get pregnant and who won't. Again, through abortion issues, through pro-life issues. And at the end of the day, when it comes to fertility, there will always be that voice in the back of your head which asks you, because I was raised that way, a bunch of people are raised that way. You get taught that biological children are the thing you need, the reason to exist, and etc. So, in my family's eye, the ones who disowned me, they saw that I was throwing my life away and quoting, I am being selfish by not giving birth. That struck a nerve in me. And I was speechless at the time. I couldn't reply anything because the decision to cut off someone is just you take the phone, you yell at them, and that's it. That's it. The relationship is severed. Hormones take ages. You need to accept yourself. You need to find people who accept you. You need to find the courage to be who you are. And To have that taken away from you should be really devastating. And anyone who is feeling overwhelmed by the situation, you can always reach out to me. And yeah, this is very devastating. And back to the fertility issue. Of course, just like everyone else, there's a lot of discussion, trust me, among trans guys who wish they would be fertile and they could have a biological baby with their partner. So even people like me, like people who know me, I'm very pro adoption. I think it's the right way to go because I just believe that I find on the opposite that it's selfish to have, for instance, 5 biological kids and not adopt. But that's my stance. And also, I contradict myself because because of my upbringing, sometimes I do wish that there was a way um, I could have had a biological baby, but just not through my pregnancy. And and to be honest, I wouldn't even want to talk about this. But since we're talking about fertility, and I'm trying to be as transparent as possible, that's the attitude we should be changing. We shouldn't be teaching children that their life is meaningless if they do not give life further. I shouldn't be thinking that I'm having a breakdown because I'm cutting down the family tree. Fertility and giving birth is not in any way the reason of living. Every person needs to think of themselves. It's not selfish. The people who will call you as selfish are the ones who are being selfish. It is very difficult to accept it, and specifically when you were a victim of abuse or in general. People don't understand the amount of people which will support Keira Bell and her transphobic endeavors. The world will always have some sort of shadow and dark place for these vermin to crawl out of. But at the end of the day, we really need to think about ourselves. And the trans community has gone through a lot of ignorance and acceptance as well. And I know this is a very long video, and thank you if you finished watching it. And I wanted to say that just because you feel that something is wrong during your transition, or if you feel right now that you want to transition, please talk to a doctor. Please let your voice be heard and end your inner turmoil by speaking out. There are a lot of good people, and no one will ever force you to transition. Transitioning will always be your decision. Fertility will always be your decision as well. And things do get better. I also wanted to close this because this video is already very long. It has a lot of pauses, I'm aware, because this is a very sensitive subject. There are days when you wake up and you look back and you think, I lost so much just to be myself. And you ask yourself if it's worth it. And then you look at yourself and you say, yes, it is. Because I wouldn't have been alive if I had not taken the path I have taken. And everyone else, whoever stood in my way, whoever pushed me back, I think my silence to many people has spoken volumes. It is very difficult. People see trans people as the loss of the child they started raising and then something else. But they never ask themselves, how is it for a child to lose a parent? How is it for anyone to not gain themselves when right now hormone blockers will be taken? I sincerely hope that this TERF era will start to loosen up, because we deserve to be ourselves. And just to finish this, I want to give a shout out to everyone who's watching. Thank you for everyone. And also, I hit 100 subscribers, which is very humble. And I am very thankful. There will be many things that we struggle with in our lives, and TERFs are very often one of them. That's why I decided to go very deep into this topic. And I also gave a bunch of my experiences, and also wanted to raise the fact that you should always be yourself. And there is this tendency where people go extreme, for instance, as well, which I need to note as the last thing. Just because you identify as a binary guy, I am a binary guy. I'm a binary gay guy. Hello. And I wear makeup. I don't care where I buy the clothing. I'm growing out of my hair. Makeup for me was a form of expressing masculinity because it just was. It just clicked in my head. I have many videos on that as well. And clothing does not make your gender. It's what inside that counts. It doesn't matter who you sleep with. So I also wanted to say that just because you don't match a cookie cutter description and you feel binary or non-binary inside, you're still valid. And you can go on and take hormones regardless if you, you know, if the world is against you, just pace yourself carefully. And yeah, and just try to remember that everything gets better eventually. Thank you very much for watching this until the end, and I will see you next week, and hopefully with a lighter topic. And for everyone else, um, please spread awareness about this. And if you're in the UK, please try to reach out and make a change. Thank you.